They called it Operation Heimholung, the mission to bring Germany's gold home. But when nearly 700 tons of treasure move through the night with no witnesses, something feels off. Even the pilots never saw the cargo. Was this a recovery or a cover story? The truth behind it might change what we think of trust. Where did Germany's gold go after the war? The story starts in 1945. When Germany lay in ruins, cities were flattened, the Reich was gone, and whatever was left of its wealth became a question of survival. Before the final collapse, Nazi officials had tried to move the nation's gold across borders and into tunnels, hoping to hide it from the advancing Allies. Some of it was found in salt mines, some simply vanished. But the core of Germany's post-war gold, the official reserves, didn't vanish into thin air. They were quietly handed over to the Allies. The Bank of England and the Banque de France held shares, and the largest hoard, thousands of bars, was sent across the Atlantic to the New York Federal Reserve. Each bar was about 12.5 kilograms, each one engraved with serial numbers that recorded its origin. In total, around 3,400 tons of gold existed, with most of it are around 2,300 tons, where most of them are mostly stored under foreign floors. It's a treasure worth over $120 billion in today's money. For West Germany, reborn in the 1950s, this arrangement looked logical at first. The Cold War was heating up. The Soviet army stood just across the border, and nobody could predict what Moscow might do next. Therefore, it made sense to keep the gold safe in the hands of friendly nations. The Bundesbank, Germany's central bank, officially claimed that holding gold abroad protected it from any invasion or economic shock. However, as the years passed, the logic started to feel strange. The Berlin Wall fell in 1989, the Soviet Union collapsed soon after, and yet Germany's gold never came home. People began asking questions. Why keep 70% of the national reserve outside the country when peace had returned? And more importantly, had anyone actually seen it since the 1950s? That question opened a door that few wanted to walk through. The government spoke of trust among allies. The Bundesbank said inspections were unnecessary because records were in order. But some economists warned that faith without proof is not trust, it's dependence. By the early 2000s, the whispers turned into headlines. Where was the gold? Who had really seen it? And if the vaults were empty, what would that mean for Europe's most powerful economy? Well, pressure began to build for answers, and what came next would pull Germany into one of the most secretive financial operations of the century. The Cold War Vault: Why Germany Kept Its Gold Abroad. By the 1950s, Germany looks reborn. Bombed-out cities now hum with factories, new highways stretch across the land, and the mark becomes one of Europe's strongest currencies. Economists call it the Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle. But behind that success lies a strange truth. The heart of Germany's wealth, its gold, rests in vaults thousands of kilometers away. Around 3,400 tons of gold sit in New York, London, and Paris. That's roughly 270,000 bars, worth hundreds of billions today. The reason, officials say, is safety. If the Soviets ever invade West Germany, the gold stays out of reach. It's a Cold War logic that sounds smart on paper. However, with time, the reasoning starts to wear thin. The wall that divides East and West Berlin rises in 1961. Decades pass. The Soviet threat grows, then fades, but the gold stays put. By the 1980s, young Germans grow up never having seen a single bar of their country's reserve. The Bundesbank reassures everyone that the gold is safe in trusted hands. But what does that mean when no one checks? Then comes 1989. The wall falls. The Cold War ends. Germany reunites. Yet the gold still sleeps abroad. Some economists quietly suggest that repatriating even a portion would make sense, a gesture of independence. But the subject remains buried under bureaucracy and diplomacy. Asking to see your own gold becomes almost impolite, as if questioning an old friend. Through the 1990s, global finance changed. Electronic money replaced metal. Central banks trade billions at the push of a button. Still, Germany keeps its bars offshore, like a family keeping its inheritance in a neighbor's safe. By the turn of the millennium, curiosity becomes suspicion. If the gold represents trust, where is the proof? How much of it has been audited since the 1950s? And what happens if one day the vaults open and something is missing? That growing unease sets the stage for what comes next. A wave of public pressure, rising doubts, and the start of a mystery that forces the world to look inside the world's most guarded vaults. Was the gold still there? By the early 2000s, the whispers grow louder. People start asking a question their parents never dared to ask. Has anyone seen Germany's gold in decades? Economists begin digging through reports, and what they find feels strange. The Bundesbank has records, yes, but no one from Germany has physically verified most of the bars since the 1950s. Journalists start pushing harder. In 2011, a German newspaper runs a story that sets the country buzzing. It claims the gold in New York and Paris might have been lent out to private banks for profit. Some say the US melted it down and reissued it. Others believe the bars were swapped, mixed, or missing altogether. There's no proof, but there's no inspection either. So people begin asking, why protect something you can't touch? Why believe what you can't see? The Bundesbank responds with calm statements, saying audits happen through documents, not physical checks. But that answer feels thin to many Germans who grew up believing gold was security, something solid, something real. Public pressure grows. By 2012, a citizen campaign called Bring Our Gold Home collects thousands of signatures. Lawmakers in the Bundestag start asking the same question on record. Even the Federal Court of Auditors steps in, saying the central bank should verify its reserves physically for transparency. Then comes the moment that changes everything. A small delegation from the Bundesbank visits the New York Federal Reserve to inspect Germany's gold firsthand. They are allowed to see only a few bars, no photos, no lists, no open access. One official later admits they were shown less than expected. That statement spreads like wildfire. Therefore, trust begins to crack. The press calls it the mystery of the missing gold. Talk shows debate whether Germany owns real gold or just paperwork. And within months, public confidence shifts to national embarrassment. So the Bundesbank faces a decision: keep explaining or start moving. What happens next will be one of the most secret financial missions of the 21st century, and almost no one outside a small circle will ever know the full story. Operation Heimholung. By 2013, the tension reaches a point where silence no longer works. The Bundesbank finally steps forward with an announcement that feels small at first glance, but hides something enormous behind it. They plan to bring home 674 tons of gold, about 1/5 of Germany's total reserves, from New York and Paris back to Frankfurt. But what they don't say is how. The operation gets a code name inside the bank: Heimholung, meaning homecoming. Every detail stays under strict secrecy. There are no public schedules, no TV cameras, and no live updates. The goal is to move nearly 27,000 bars, each weighing 12.5 kilograms, without anyone knowing until it's done. The total value? Around $30 billion. Why so much secrecy? Because gold attracts attention and risk. Every shipment is a target. Therefore, the logistics turn into something like a spy film. Shipments leave in small batches, sometimes hidden inside regular cargo planes, sometimes escorted by armed guards across borders. Even the crews rarely know what they are carrying until minutes before takeoff. Inside the Bundesbank, security teams build custom vaults under Frankfurt. These chambers are climate-controlled, sealed, and designed to hold tons of bullion stacked on steel racks. Workers handle each bar with gloves, scanning serial numbers against decades-old records. Any mismatch could mean global scandal. However, the operation faces small storms along the way. In France, delays appear because of technical reasons. In the United States, officials decline to confirm specific details about the transfer. That fuels another wave of theories online. Some claim Germany is recovering recast gold, not the originals from the 1950s. Others believe the delay hides how little gold remains in those vaults. So the Bundesbank keeps quiet, only confirming progress once shipments are safely home. Between 2013 and 2017, gold flowed back to Frankfurt in total silence. By the time anyone realizes how much has moved, the hardest part is already complete. Therefore, what started as a rumor turns into one of the most complex and secretive transfers in modern history. But the real challenge comes next, when the world asks, did Germany truly get its gold back? The logistics of moving gold. Moving gold sounds simple until you realize what 700 tons actually means. Each bar weighs 12.5 kilograms, the size of a brick but far heavier. Each ton equals roughly 80 bars, and Germany planned to move around 27,000 gold bars. So how do you move that much metal across oceans without anyone knowing? The answer, with precision that borders on obsession. The first rule of the operation is secrecy. Every shipment leaves on a different route, sometimes by air, sometimes through ground convoys. The transport teams change constantly. Even the pilots receive final cargo details moments before takeoff. Insurance policies cover billions, yet no one is allowed to discuss them publicly. Every step gets logged, double-checked, and sealed. Inside those planes, the bars are packed in armored containers, stacked, numbered, and locked with tamper-proof seals. Each flight requires heavy police escort from airport to vault. In Frankfurt, special teams meet the planes at night. Convoys roll through empty streets under strict curfew, engines humming under low light. The public sees nothing. However, the gold's journey doesn't end at the airport. Once inside the Bundesbank vaults, technicians line up every bar for inspection. Serial numbers, weights, and purity marks are compared to original records from the 1950s and 60s. A single irregular number could spark questions in Parliament. Therefore, the process runs with almost ritual discipline. The media, meanwhile, keeps guessing. Some newspapers claim American intelligence helped coordinate the operation. Others say the planes carried fake bars to distract attention. In truth, the process was so secret that even many Bundesbank employees never knew when the next load would arrive. By 2017, the final containers reach Frankfurt. The vault doors close, and the Bundesbank quietly announces completion. The entire operation, 4 years, 3 countries, hundreds of flights, costs tens of millions of euros, but the government calls it priceless reassurance. However, reassurance comes with new questions. The gold has returned home, yes, but many Germans still wonder, did they really recover the same treasure that left their country decades earlier? And if so, why does the story still feel unfinished? The gold comes home, or does it? By 2017, the Bundesbank proudly announces success. Every target met, every shipment complete. Over 1,700 tons of gold now rest deep below Frankfurt, locked behind reinforced steel doors, under 24-hour surveillance. For the first time in decades, more than half of Germany's gold is back on home soil. The headlines sound triumphant, but the mood across the country is divided. Some celebrate it as a victory of trust and independence. Others sense something off. The gold returns years earlier than planned, yet there are no photos of arrivals, no public audits, no serial lists released. Therefore, people begin to wonder, how can a nation prove its gold is real if no one outside a small circle has ever touched it? Then come the small but strange details. In official photos, the bars look newly cast, smoother than the older ones from the 1950s. Economists question whether the Bundesbank received its original gold or freshly minted replacements from other reserves. The bank explains that resmelting is standard practice for purity verification, but the explanation does little to calm suspicion. The controversy grows louder when independent groups request open verification and are politely denied. Security reasons, they are told. German taxpayers begin to feel that the gold belongs to them in theory, but remains untouchable in practice. The conspiracy forums light up, claiming parts of the reserve never left foreign vaults. However, behind the noise, one fact remains. Germany's gold is safer today than at any point in the post-war era. The Bundesbank's vaults now stand among the most secure in Europe. The operation, once mocked as symbolic, becomes a global example of financial sovereignty. Still, some questions never fade. Was the operation a recovery or a reassurance? Did Germany truly reclaim what was lost, or did it accept a substitute for peace of mind? History hides its biggest secrets in plain sight. Click the next video on your screen right now before it disappears. It continues this story and reveals what really happened next.